Welcome students. So now we will discuss the decision tree analysis as the last technique of the standalone project risk analysis. And in this analysis, just we started talking about the decision tree analysis as a tool of the project analysis in the previous class. So now in this class, we will talk about the analysis in detail, conceptually also, and with the help of a small example also. So when you talk about the decision tree analysis, so we can say that decision tree analysis is the tool for analyzing situations where sequential decision making in face of the risk is involved. So it is a analyzing the situations where sequential decision making, where the sequential decision making in the face of the risk is involved. In the face of the risk is involved, one after the another. Directly, we are not jumping to the conclusion. For taking the investment decision or for manufacturing of any product or generating of any service, we are moving in a stepwise manner. So we are moving that first we will try to have an idea in our mind, and then we will try to do the basic analysis and try to say further develop the product. And if we are able to develop the product, then we will go for the test marketing. And if as per the test marketing, if the results are up to the mark, then we will go for say taking the next decision, that is the investment decision, and finally giving the shape to the project. If at the test marketing level, if the project is not giving us the desirable value, so we will abandon the proposal. So everything moves in a sequential manner, right? We are not directly jumping to the conclusion. In case of the entire project analysis, even means for the entire project analysis, it's a sequential decision making process. As we saw till now, that we first generate the idea or conceive the idea in our mind, and then we go for testing the idea means as per the market and demand requirements, and then as per the technical requirements, and then as per the say the financial requirements. And finally we take a call that if your market and demand analysis gives the positive results, technical analysis says that the project is manageable, financial analysis says that the project is going to give the better outcome, so then we finally take a call. Same is the almost the process in the decision tree analysis as well, where in the sequential form, in the sequential process, we take the decisions and finally we try to say understand that what finally this investment involves in terms of the say financial outcome, or maybe the NPV in the form of the NPV outcome, in the form of NPV or IRR, and in terms of the risk management. If we are able to manage the risk and get the good desired results, we will go for making the investment. But if we are not able to, then we will not make the investment. So it's in the say stepwise manner, one step to the next step, next step to the next step to the next step. So and so we'll make a total sequence, and finally we will arrive at a step where we will start say evaluating the total investment proposal and look at that what is the final outcome in terms of the monetary value being created by the project and expected monetary value being created by the project, and how much risk is involved and whether the risk is manageable or not. So now the key steps in the decision making involved in the decision making are key steps in the decision making are: number one, identify the problems and alternatives, right? First of all, identify the problem and alternatives, that what is the product you want to manufacture and or the service you want to generate, or what kind of the business you want to have, or what kind of the project you want to set up or venture you want to set up, and what are the different alternatives available in our hands, right? So we have to have all the alternatives, whether to go for the investment in the project X or Y or Z, or maybe not to make any investment in these three projects. So maybe at any level we can abandon the investment decision for either of these three projects, and the project which is giving us the best results and the risk at the manageable level, that would be our final call. So this is the first thing, is identify the problem and alternatives. Second thing is delineate the decision tree, means designing the or maybe developing the decision tree after knowing the problem and the alternatives, or maybe keeping the or problems and alternatives in our hands. And then specify the probabilities and monetary outcomes. Specify the probabilities and the monetary outcomes. We will have to see here that what are the probabilities associated to those different decisions maybe becoming successful or not becoming successful. Because you can conceive a decision, you can plan a decision to be taken, but how far that decision would be successful or not, that depends upon the probability or the chances to happen. So it means we have to specify the probabilities, and the monetary outcome means by way of multiplying the absolute value with the probability, and then finally finding out the expected monetary value. So that is called as a monetary outcome. We call it as the EVM, expected monetary value or expected value in the monetary terms, right? Expected value in the monetary terms. So we will have to find out, and that would depend upon the absolute value as well as the probability, because probability is not 1 all the times. It's not 100% all the times. If it is 100%, then that estimate is the finally the expected value in the monetary terms. But if it is not 100%, so it means you have to multiply that expected value with the probability or the probabilistic estimates, and the final expected value will be calculated. So evaluate the various decision alternatives and finally take the call which one is the best for us. So next thing we will learn about it, that while developing that decision tree, you will have to say confront with the two important things. One is the decision points, and second important thing is the chance points. Decision points, or you call it as decision points and the alternative options, right? Whether to take the decision or not to take the decision. So one alternative is that yes, go ahead, the decision looks to be genuine, practically possible, or it doesn't look practically possible, or is going to be a value generating option. So we will abandon that. We will go for not decision to be taken, the main decision, but the alternative option, and the alternative option can be to abandon that decision. And finally, we will have to check it. Finally, we will have to take a call whether to go or implement that decision or not to implement decision. That will be based upon the experimentation or on the basis of the number of options to be evaluated, which will be based upon certain data or certain inputs. So the first thing is the decision point and the alternative options available for experimentation and actions at these decision points, right? Experimentations and actions at these decision points. So we will have to look at it. So always you will have the two options available, whether to take the decision or to abandon that decision. If to take that decision, what are the chances of success? So you will have to go for the next thing, that is the chance point, to the chance point. And the chance point, where the outcomes are dependent on a chance process and the likely outcome at these points. So it means we'll have to look for the chance points. We'll have to go for the chance points. So from the decision to the chance we have to move to, and chance points where the outcomes are dependent on chance process and the likely outcome at these points. So it means finally the decision which you are going to take place, that is, or you're going to take finally in the business, that whether to make investment of 100 million or not. So there can be two alternatives, whether to make this investment, yes, or we have to abandon this. So this is no. So if you are accepting the decision, you are at the decision point. So there are the two directions going. One is saying yes and one is saying no. So if you are going for yes, it means you are agreeing to make the investment of 100 million. And if you are accepting no, it means you are not making this investment. So you are going for the alternative option and you are going to abandon the decision, drop the decision, not to implement it. But in case you take a decision in favor of yes, that yes, I will make the investment of 100 million. So what are the chances of success? Chances of success will depend upon on the probability, and we can say, for example, that this is the 0.7, probability is a 0.7, that this 100 millions of the investment would be a successful investment, and the expected values would be as per our desired value in terms of the monetary outcomes of the project. So both the things, decision points are also important, chance points are also important. Decision points give us the different alternatives. By way of it, we can go ahead in the project or we can abandon the project. Under chance point, we are getting the probabilistic estimates which help us to understand that to what extent your decision would be successful and to what extent your decision will not be successful. So both the things are important, and this is the second requirement or next requirement in developing a decision tree, that you have to identify the decision points and chance points, and finally you have to develop the branches of the tree and give the shape to the tree and finally delineate it, or finally develop the tree or finally delineate it. And next thing is now the specification of the probabilities and monetary value of the outcomes. So once the decision tree is delineated, right? Once the decision tree is delineated, the following data has to be gathered. The following data has to be gathered. Number one is the probabilities, and second one is the monetary values. Probabilities associated with each of the possible outcomes at various chance forks or the chance points, and monetary value of each of the combination of decision alternatives and the chance outcomes. So it means Finally, a decision's monetary value will depend upon its chances of happening or becoming successful. So you have to first find out the probabilities or the possibilities of happening of the decisions as expected or as per the expectations, and finally the monetary value, because when you combine the expected value, or maybe the monetary value, or maybe the absolute value of that particular investment, or maybe the outcome, it can be two ways, outflow as well as inflow. So first you will have the absolute value of the outflow, and then you have the absolute value of the inflows, and when you multiply that absolute value with the probabilistic estimates, then finally you will get the expected value, and those expected value would be called as the monetary values as a outcome of those decisions based upon the chances of the success or failure. If we are saying that decision is right and chances of success are 70% or 80%, we are going to make investment. So finally we can get the monetary value which would be as per the expectations, and if that level of the monetary value the project gives, then we are able to take up the decision, go ahead with the making of investment and developing the project, and finally whatever the outcome, maybe with the 70% of probability or 80% of probability, we are happy with that and we will make the investment. But if other way around, other things happen, for example, the probability of happening that something positive is 70% and not happening is 30%. So if the things move towards that 30%, so it means the risk involved is very high, and we should not go ahead with that venture, we should not implement that venture, and we should not make that investment. So deciding the probabilities, that's a very important question, and calculating the monetary value on the basis of the probabilities, that is the next requirements. Both the things we will do, and finally we will arrive at the monetary values. If they are expected values, we will go ahead with the investment. If they are not expected values, we will not go ahead with the investment. And now again, a million dollar question, that how to specify the probabilities and the monetary value of the outcome, when we were talking in the previous slide, that the specification of the probabilities and the monetary value of the outcome. So specification of the probabilities is now a million dollar question, and how to go for, say, specifying the probabilities. In the previous lecture also, with regard to the simulation, I told you that say assigning the probability to any outcome can be done in two ways. Number one, it can be done objectively or it can be done subjectively, right? So in case of the a decision being objective or the probabilistic estimates being objective, you have to have the previous data or the past trends data must be known to us, that how the things have been moving in the past number of years. If we are able to have that data or that particular trend of that data, then developing the trend for the future will be possible, and the probabilistic estimates would be possible, or assigning the probabilities would be objectively possible. But if nothing of the sort is available, similar project is not there, similar investment is not there in existence, then the element of objectivity will be very low, and entirely your probabilistic estimates and the monetary outcomes will be based upon the subjective estimates. For example, it is given an example here that for you want to find out the good monsoon, whether it will happen in the current year, good monsoon will be there or not. So largely meteorological department tries to understand from the past year's data, that how in the past the monsoon has been happening in the particular region of a country or a state, or maybe in the part of the world, and looking at the changes taking place in the environment in the current period, whether the same trend of the monsoon which was in the previous year or the previous 5 years, will that be there in the current year, maybe in the sixth year also or not. So because you have a past data, right? So you have the past data or historical data. So on the basis of the historical data, you can extrapolate about the future. And if you extrapolate about the future, so that probabilistic estimates may be largely based upon the objectivity. But if you do not have anything, for example, now you want to manufacture some product, right? And similar kind of the product is not there in the market. That was the one important reason that the Anchor's fruit beer failed, because Anchor fruit beer kind of the product was not available in the Indian market, and the Anchor couldn't guess in advance that how the things are going to happen and what amount of the subjectivity, entirely it was based upon the subjective estimates, and they couldn't understand properly that what level of the probability as well as the monetary outcome can be assigned. to the expected estimates, right? So in this process, the probability was totally subjective, and finally the monetary outcome at the estimation level was also subjective. So the outcome was not up to the mark, and finally it was a bad investment. So if there is no previous trends, no past data, no historical data, so everything you are going to be means on your subjective estimates, whether it is assigning specification of the probabilities or calculating the monetary value, right? So it's clearly written here, the probabilities of the various outcomes may be sometimes defined objectively. For example, the probability of good monsoon may be based on objective, may be based upon the objective or historical data. More often, however, the possible outcomes encountered in the real life are such that objective probabilities for them cannot be obtained. Because if the past data is not there, historical data is not there, you are not able to understand how the things have been happening in the past and how the things will happen in the future. In that case, the subjectivity element of the subjectivity at any estimate level remains high, and when the estimates are based upon the subjectivity, they may be true also, they may not be true also. So finally, it is written here, how can you, for example, define objectively the probability that a new product like an electric moped will be successful in the market? In such cases, probabilities have to be necessarily defined subjectively. Same, whether it's an electrical moped or it is a fruit beer, nothing of the sort is already existing in the market. So for that purpose, you have to use the subjective element of the subjectivity would be very high, and when the element of the subjectivity is very high and the experience of the consultant or the person who is making the estimates of the probability and the monetary value is not very good, and he is not conversant with the market in which we are going to produce and serve the product, then finally the outcome may not be as desired. So you have to have the complete knowledge of the product, complete knowledge of the market, complete knowledge of the market base, customers, distribution systems, and say distribution channels. Everything should be known to you very clearly, and the paying capacity of the people, acceptance, possible acceptance of the product or the service by the people, everything has to be known to the people who are going to make the subjective estimates. If they are not aware about the market and the product is new, no historical data is there, then subjectivity creates a problem, and finally the outcome may not be as expected. That's why Reliance, being a very large sized industrial group, second after the Tata, Tatas in the country, they came out with the, say, this Geo mobile telephone, this mobile telephony. They moved into the mobile, say, telephony market. They were very cautious because they were moving into a market where, though the previous data was there, the market was there, the previous data was there, but the market was highly competitive. So whether they will be successful as a fifth player or not, that was not sure, right? So in that case, they initially gave the service free of cost, and finally they started pricing it, and when they priced it, the service quality was good, the price was also affordable, so it grew at a faster pace. So how to assign probabilities and a monetary value? We can say here objectively and subjectively both, but objectively will be possible. Objectively will be possible if the past data and past trends are available. So on the basis of those trends, we can objectively say something about the future. But if the product or service is entirely new, everything has to be based upon the subjective estimates, which may be sometime true or which may not be. So we have to be prepared for any kind of the outcome. Then finally, we'll have to go for the evaluation of the alternatives. Once we go for, say, developing the product, maybe not practically, but on the decision tree, and finally we develop different of the alternatives. So we will have to start evaluating those alternatives. And for evaluating the alternatives, we have to start from the right hand side. So it's written here that start at the right hand end of the tree and calculate the expected monetary value at various chance points that come first as we proceed leftwards. And next thing is, given the expected monetary values of the chance points in the step 1, evaluate the alternatives at the final stage decision point in terms of their expected monetary values. So start moving from the right to left and start calculating the monetary values, and finally try to find out whether the monetary value is as per the expectations or it is not as per the expectations if you go for implementing the decision. If they are not as per the expectations, even at the last stage of the decision tree analysis, we can decide to drop the project. So this is the evaluation of the alternatives. And finally, at each of the final stage decision points, it's clearly written here, mind it, at each of the final stage decision points, select the alternatives which has the highest expected monetary value and truncate. Truncate means abandon, drop the other alternatives. At each of the final stage decision points, select the alternatives which has the highest expected monetary value and truncate or drop the other alternatives. Each decision point is assigned a value equal to the expected monetary value of the alternative selected at the decision point. Then next thing is proceed backward, leftward in the same manner, calculating the expected monetary value at the chance points, selecting the decision alternatives which has the highest expected monetary value at various decision points, and truncate the inferior decision alternatives and assigning values to the decision points. Finally, assign the value to the decision points till the first decision point is reached. Means where you started from, means you have to start from the right hand side and come to the left hand side, and you have to prove it that where you started taking the decision or maybe working on the decision, that must be proved right. If at any stage, if it is found that where we started from, the decision is not up to the mark or is not giving the expectations up to the mark, we will have to drop it. So finally, we will have to evaluate all the options available, right, through the decisions and the chances of happening or of those decisions coming true. And finally, we will have to take a call that whatever we decided to do in the beginning, after evaluating the whole process through the decision tree analysis, whether we have been given a final answer that yes, the project is worthwhile after all the analysis or not. If it is worthwhile, go ahead, implement it, and be ready to face the consequences, whether good or bad. Any of the maybe indications, or at any stage the indications are not up to the mark, or maybe it's a clear indication that the investment may not be a positive investment or successful investment, in that case we will have to drop the decision, we have to abandon the decision, and we have to truncate the alternative. Maybe we have to say not to make the investment at all, because the results are not as expected and we are not supported by the outcome of this analysis in favor of making the investment. Now, after having known about or talked about this process in detail, we will understand with the help of an example or with the help of a small case, which will help us to understand how we can implement the this decision tree analysis. It's a very simple example. In the real life, there can be complex situations also. So there are different sources, different books. The best book is by Prasanna Chandra on projects. So you can refer to that book, and from that book you can easily understand how to use the decision tree analysis. There are simpler problems also, complex problems also. So you can make use of those problems and you can understand in the wider perspective. But just for the reference purpose or just for the beginning or initial understanding, we have this small and simple case, and after understanding this case clearly right from beginning till end, you will be able to understand very clearly that I'm sure that you will be very clear that how that decision tree analysis can be implemented and how the risk can be estimated or can be visualized in advance with the help of this case, in case of any practical investment requirement or any investment practical investment proposal. So Vaigyanic case would be very, very helpful you to understand the implementation of the decision tree analysis in the practical sense or for evaluating any investment option or any investment decision. So it's given here clearly. The scientists at Vaigyanic have come up with an electric moped. The scientists at the Vaigyanic have come up with an electric moped. The firm is ready for pilot production and test marketing. The firm is ready for the pilot production and test marketing. This will cost rupees 20 million and take 6 months, right? So what they want to do initially is they have developed a electric moped and pilot production now they have to do, and test marketing. So this is the first step, because when you develop a product and when you do the pilot production, just initial level of production, and go for the test marketing, which I told you that Anchor also did, that initially they manufactured at a small scale and they started distributing it as a free of cost, the fruit beer free of cost, and then they wanted to have the feedback. So at that level, the product was rejected and the feedback was very poor. So they couldn't go for the, say, mass production or maybe for the commercial production. So that's a normal process in the product life cycle of every product. So here also they want to do is that initially they want to go for the pilot production and test marketing. This will cost 20 million and 6 months period of time, right? So they can spend 20 millions, close to 2 crores they will have to spend, and 6 months of the time it will take for test marketing, and they have to wait for the results. Management believes that there is a 70% chance that the pilot production and test marketing will be successful, right? In case of success, Bigyani can build the plant costing rupees 150 million. 150 million, but only after seeing the success of the product in the test marketing. The plant will generate an annual cash flow of 30 million for 20 years, right? 30 million for 20 years. The plant will generate the cash flows if the demand is high. So the plant will require the investment of 150 millions, and it can generate the annual cash inflow of the 30 million for the next 20 years if the demand is high, or an annual cash flow of 20 million if the demand is moderate, or the annual cash flow of the 20 millions if the demand is moderate, right? High demand has a probability of the 0.6 or 60% probability, and remaining probability 40% is for the moderate demand, right? So we have to analyze this whole thing with the help of a decision tree analysis. To analyze such situation where the sequential decision making is involved, decision tree analysis is helpful, and we have to understand that how the decision tree works and how the decision tree helps us in the decision making. So you understand all the inputs may be given here, or maybe the total information available about this particular product. The product is the electric moped or small scooter they want to manufacture. They have already developed in this particular company. They have already developed the product, and finally they want to go for the test marketing and pilot production and test marketing. Initially, that is the first phase, and the cost is 20 million, means close to 2 crores they have to spend on the test marketing and pilot production, and it will take a 6 months time. And after 6 months they will have to know about whether the product is accepted in the market or not. And it's clearly given that, say, there are 70% chances, means you look at it, there are 70% chances that the test marketing or the pilot production would be successful. And once it is successful, if the results are success, they are in the favor of the decision, then the company would build a plant with the cost of 150 millions for manufacturing of the product on the commercial scale. And if the demand for the product is high, if the product is successful and the demand for the product is high, it will give you the annual cash flow of the 30 million for the next 20 years. But if the demand is moderate, it will give you the cash flow of the 20 millions for the next 20 years. So chances of the demand being high are 60%, chances of the demand being moderate, there is no chance of demand being low at all. So there can be high demand or the moderate demand. So chances of demand being high is 60%, chances of demand being moderate is 40%. And finally, they have to decide with the help of the decision tree whether they should go for making the investment or not, and should start manufacturing the product, this electric moped or small scooter, on the commercial basis or not. So we are going to analyze this entire situation of this particular product of the electric moped with the help of the decision tree, and going to take a call finally whether the Bigyani should go ahead for the commercial production or not. So this detailed analysis and understanding of the Bigyani's case we will do in the next class. Till then, thank you very much.